extraordinary human and a very dear friend, Artemio Rodríguez. I have a brief introduction that I will make here, but I want to say something that I want to make also very personal. Artemio has been working with the students at STAMS for the past 4 days, and it's been absolutely extraordinary. We have been working until 10, 11, midnight all these days and have produced some remarkable work. And one thing that I've tried to bring before my students was this thought that might not be kind of the right thought to share, but then I will share it because I think it's a form of compliment to them and their futures. I've known Artemio longer than most of my students here that I teach right now have lived. And that bond, that friendship, that kinship through artistry, making, thinking, living has been an important pillar of my own life as a human and practicing artist. So on that note, I'm going to read a couple of notes here. Artemio comes to us from a state in Mexico called Michoacán, which has resemblance to the word Michigan, and both relate to the notion of water as specific place. He is a self-taught artist and printmaker whose early beginnings are rooted in working with the letterpress printmaker Juan Pascoe at Taller Martin Pescador. That's where Artemio discovered his potential for art making and printmaking. Initially, he wanted to produce poetry, and when they recognized how fluidly he draws and how prolific he is, they encouraged him to make more of drawings and more of prints. We met in East Los Angeles at a place called Self-Help Graphics, one of the most vibrant centers for printmaking anywhere. That was a transformative point for me as I encountered Artemio and his crew of artists, makers, printmakers, where they converted an old milk truck into graphic mobile gallery, print shop, theater, and mural. You'll learn more about it tonight. He and his partner, Silvia Capistrano, following their work with the self-help graphics, established a place called La Mano Gráfica, or the hand press, and thrived with that enterprise for many years before deciding to move it down to his native state, Michoacán, to continue working with local communities, indigenous artists, and serve a larger cause in their native land. Artemio has been, both Artemio and Silvia have been awarded for their work by numerous foundations, most recently the Creative Capital Grant. And they have exhibited their work worldwide. Many of the pieces can be found in museums across this country and abroad. And one of the most remarkable things that I will leave you on is that our students participated in the project with Artemio. So all of the students in this class will end up having a print from Artemio, which is, I think, something to be very proud of for years to come. So without further delay, please welcome our guest speaker, STAMS distinguished artist and an extraordinary human, Artemio Rodríguez.
Buenas noches. It really is a pleasure to be here. To be honest, when I was invited, I am I like to be home and at my studio most of the time. I hate to be on airplanes, go to the security lines, and then all the lines that you have to make. And in general, I prefer to save to the planet my trip in a plane. But when Andy invited me personally to come here, I couldn't say no. because I really admire his work, and we have been, as he said, very good friends for a long time. So I want to thank him, I want to thank Christina, and everyone who made possible for me to come all the way here. It's really a pleasure. Let me see, let me take this out. What is it? It's here. Okay. That's 12 years ago, 13 years ago that I came for first time here to visit Andy and to work. We are getting wasted on Chinese salsa. And I think he's drinking syrup, maple syrup. Now this is 30 years later, and I'm very, very, very happy to be here. For me, it's important to go to a place and work. I think it's the best way to get a feeling of it. So for me, it was great. At first, so I accepted. I had to do some things about my paperwork because I am a resident in the U.S., and I forgot to renew it, and I was sure that I wasn't coming back, so I let it go. But with this opportunity, I went through all that process. And then just before coming, he told me, let me see, okay, that they were doing this project with his students, this portfolio exchange, and he told me that the subject matter, it was raw. Raw in Spanish is translated as crudo or cruda. And if you tell somebody in Mexico crudo or cruda, they immediately think about hangover. So I don't know, I don't think this is what they want to see. They don't want to see a hangover print or about a hangover guy or whatever. So I started to thinking about it. And at first I was tempted to do illustrate Frankenstein because I really loved that story. And I was thinking about it until I came across a book about Greek mythology. And I thought, well, what is more raw that the scenes or the things that happen there? So I came with this idea of doing the myth of Medusa, Andromeda, and Perseo. But I'm changing places, genders to the characters. No? In this case, instead of Perseo killing Medusa, it's Andromeda killing Medusa, and Medusa is not a female but a male. So I did that print just before coming, and then they printed, the students, they printed 30 copies of this linocut, which was great. And I had 4 days. I arrived Sunday, and so since Monday, I have been there at the studio, enjoying the company of many of the students that are here tonight, and I'm working. And every time I say, oh, it's freezing outside, they are like, what? It's not freezing outside. It's a nice weather. But I'm not used to that. So I really enjoy being inside and working. So I had, as I said before, I was working this idea of the mythological story of Perseo and Andromeda, and this is the sketch that I draw in the plane getting here. There I have a piece of plywood. It's a fourth of a plywood sheet, and it's painted on red, and then you can draw on it. And it was very interesting because when I had in front of me the piece of wood, I had done before woodcuts, but in general I use it as if it were linoleum. I think it's a surface, a flat surface, and then you cut out whatever design you do, and then you print it out. But in this case, the grain of the wood was so beautiful, so perfect, and with so much movement that I saw it and I said, I have to do something with it. And I hadn't done it before, but with somebody like Andy, directing me, I was able to play around with it. So here we see a detail of the piece. Let me go forward. So in 2 days, I was able to draw it and then carve. The design part, the characters, the rocks and all that, it didn't took me too long. What took longer was the background. All the lines that you see, that's the drawing of the grain of the wood. But if you print it out, it gets covered by the ink, so you get a flat image. And sometimes a little bit of texture, but not like this. So I had to go with a knife, with a kind of a Sharpie, like cutting through the drawing that some tree in Canada or somewhere had created all over the years that he was growing. So it was very interesting, but very tiring. That took me a whole day to do that part. There we are about to run it through the press, and then it is coming out. That's the plate. So again, Andromeda. One of the things, when I was doing my research for doing it, I read a lot of things about the myths, and one of the complaints that many of the historians or writers, whoever writes in Google, said that that is the most common thing is to see the ladies, the girls, being these indefense, weak characters in the story, and the male is always saving them. So I wanted to go along with the criticism and change places. So in this case, supposedly Perseo comes and saves Andromeda, and she's tied to the rocks in the coast because she has been offered to the gods because her mother had spoken and said that her daughter was the most beautiful lady in the planet, and so the gods got mad and decided to punish the city. So they said if they didn't give her as an offering, the gods will destroy the city, and they would send this beast to do that. So she's there, and then I don't know why Perseo is flying with a head of Medusa going to save another lady. And then he sees that, and then he says, "Oh, if I save it, can I marry her?" And of course, do it. And so he does that, and then with the head of Medusa, he shows the head to the beast, and she becomes a stone. So that's more or less the story. And as you can see, the background, it's very interesting how it created everything. Usually I do the main characters of my design, and then in the background I build up a scenario and more characters and stuff. I'm very Baroque. But in this case, I didn't want to do a profanity and erase that, so I kept it. That's the print. That's only the first proof. I still worked a little bit more and made more details and all that. So it was very good for me to be in these couple days working and learning a lot. And to top that, because Andy is the great master of color prints, I asked him, can we do it with color? And he said yes. So in this case, this is the original plate. That's another plate, but so he transferred the image to the second plate. So now oh, I have to point this way. he said, well, now carve it. And I said, I don't think I'm going to do that because I would be so basic doing it that it's going to be a waste of time and material. So he agreed to do that. So he's doing the second plate, which for me it's a great honor to have a print where we collaborate and I learn from a master. So he's doing that. What is going to happen is he's going to print in a light color the background, and then in a darker color, the foreground. But it's going to create tonalities. It's not going to be on a woodcut with some parts of color, but it's going to be all over creating place of color. So it's going to be very interesting. He's going to do that, and then later we'll talk about it. So here we see him working on that. Okay, now I'll go to my presentation. And I decided to title my talk Skeletons Riot because I think it's of great importance to keep our creative traditions alive in all fields of art and culture, literature, visual arts, crafts, music. As a visual artist, I consider the crafts that I do as skeletons, as living skeletons that never cease to surprise us and give us something new. So I think it's important as a humanity, as a society, to keep those traditions alive and keep moving forward, but always keeping those alive. I'm going to give a little overview of the Mexican printmaking history. And okay, let me see, what's the next? When I started my career in the 1990s, the Mexican art scene was dominated by great artists like Toledo, Jose Luis Cuevas, and printmaking techniques used back then, and they are still used, etching and lithograph. There was not much relief printing going on. A lot of abstract art was created. When I went to Mexico City after being in the US for a couple of years, I went and saw the galleries and tried to understand that. And it's an art scene that is, I guess, is like here, but there is a little bit worse because there are only 2 or 3 cities in Mexico City that have an art scene going on. Mexico City, Monterrey, Guadalajara, and maybe others, but very little. Here in the US, you have almost in every city, you get something going on. And of course, you have LA, you have New York, Chicago. I don't know, I'm not familiar with all that. But it's for us as artists, you have the possibility of getting in somehow. In Mexico, forget about it. It's very limited, very centralized, and I didn't have a chance to be doing it there. Talking about a little bit of history, in the end, well, all over the 19th century and the beginning of the 19th and the 20th, in Mexico we had this phenomenon of broadsides and booklets that were illustrated using engravings. Many of them, we don't know who the illustrators were, but we know about a couple of them. And the one in the left is José Guadalupe Posada, and in the right is Manuel Manilla. We don't know too much about them. We know that Posada was from Aguascalientes. He came to Mexico City, and he was an incredible artist. Manilla was already there for some decades before, and José Guadalupe took over the art scene and created 2,000 illustrations in his lifetime. This is Manuel Manilla. So you see it, and it's a little bit more rough, more antique, but I love it. I think it has you can identify him and his expression and his way of engraving. I think it's very strong. Here is another of his pieces, and then these are some little booklets that circulated telling stories or sometimes, I don't know, remedies or things to inform people. And they were popular and circulated all over. This is José Guadalupe Posada again, and he was a great master of that trade. Here we can see how great he was and how incredible. And it's incredible because he was a self-taught artist. No, he didn't go to a school. Another piece by him. Okay. This engraving is done by an artist called Leopoldo Méndez, and it's very interesting because you can see here a portrait of Posada in his print studio. He's looking through the window, and there is something bad going on out there. No, there's a group of guards, police, back then in horse, and they are beating a group of people. So you can see Posada, he's like all with a lot of passion, looking and trying to go out and all that. The guys in the back are some anarchist writers that they didn't have a relation. It's the imagination of the artist. And I wanted to show you this because it has the general conception about Posada. But when you see the work of Posada, you see that he was a professional illustrator. He wasn't a political one. He did some things about injustices and all that, but he also did portraits of Porfirio Diaz, which was a dictator of Mexico for 30 years. He also did some illustrations to say bad things about Emiliano Zapata, which was the main leader of the revolution. So he did what he was asked for. He wasn't really a political artist, which is not to say bad things about him, but in the contrary, I think he was a human being, and he had to survive. He had to do whatever he needed to do. Here we can see a photograph of him. He's on the right, and in front of his studio. We can read in the sign that says, illustrations for newspapers, books, and ads. José Guadalupe Posada, Taller de Grabado, and then in the bottom it says ilitografía. So he started in Aguascalientes doing lithography, then he came to Mexico City, and what was used was relief prints like the ones we see on my left. And so on top is an original plate, metal plate, mounted on wood, engraved by hand by Posada. We see it, the printed result down there. And I thought all of the prints by Posada were done that way. But some years ago, I went to Oregon University to do a workshop. And this man came, and he had with him 7 or 8 woodcuts engraved by Posada. So he had printed some proofs, and it was beautiful to see them. And I was very thankful to this guy for bringing them. And I really wanted him to say, do you want to take them? Would be better if you have them in Mexico. But I tried to get to that point, but he didn't. But it was very curious because to do a demonstration, I was working on a piece based on a Posada piece. That is this one. It's a man being attacked by the 7 deadly sins. So it was funny. And this guy knew about me because of this book that we had published, and I was the author of it, and we had published it 2 years ago. So that was nice to see. I'm showing this one because he not only did engrave, but he used etching techniques in a way that nobody uses anymore, maybe. Because this one is also a metal plate, and in this one, what he did it was to draw on the metal surface with a brush and with, they call it a stop-out varnish, which is resistant to acid. So you draw on the plate, and then you put the plate into a bath of acid, and then it bites wherever is not protected. So it bites in, and then you wash it with water, and then you have a beautiful drawing that you can print on a letterpress. You have to clean it a little bit, but this one looks like all was done that way, using a brush. This one, which is one of the most famous images by Posada, is the same way. You couldn't have done that. You can do anything engraving, but if any of you have done it, you know that it's easier to draw with a brush and then do it. But he was so good that it looks like a print. It doesn't look like a drawing, which, if you know what I mean. Now, when in the 1910s, maybe before, the technology was enough, and it was, they were able to translate film negatives to the plates. So they were able to reproduce photographs and then put them on the letterpress and create images. The one here in the left is from 1910, in the right is from 1920. And you can see how poor, we can say that, they are. If you see them side by side by one broadside done by Manilla or Posada, they are strong, beautiful, funny, human. And these ones, they look boring to me, no? That's what I think. So it was a great loss because the trade of engravers disappeared in Mexico, no? Another great moment of the graphic arts in Mexico is in the 1930s and 40s. And it was led by a group called Taller de la Gráfica Popular. And they started using linoleum. This guy, Leopoldo Méndez, did some amazing pieces. Some of them can be seen in movies, in the golden era of cinema in Mexico. They will be on the credit and the openings and during the movie. And they are like this, very monumental, very strong. This, on the one in the left, is part of the movie too, and over there, I don't know what it was used for, but he was very political, very strong in that way, no? This one is also Leopoldo Méndez. He's kind of copying Posada. And I don't know who's on the left, but I wanted to show that because it was a big renaissance of the graphic arts in Mexico. And it also included guys like Francisco Díaz de León, who mastered it and did a revival of the book print arts there in Mexico. And he did lovely books, very, very beautiful. I am lucky to own some of his books, and they are very inspiring. When I went to Mexico City in 2005, I met this couple of designers, José Luis Lugo and Selva Hernández, and they were working on this magazine called La Galera, and also designing books for a series called Biblioteca del Libro Ilustrado. We deal with Mexican graphic artists like Posada, Manilla, Rufino Tamayo, and others. So we became friends. And one day they invited me, well, through them I met also a publisher called Ramon Reverte, and together they invited me one day to visit a descendant of Vanegas Arroyo. This is a broadside about him, about Vanegas Arroyo, and he was the publisher of Manilla and Posada. So we went to Tepito, in the center of Mexico City, to visit a descendant of him and see what he had. So we were sitting there, and then he brought a bunch of broadsides by Posada and booklets and all that, and he said, buy whatever you want. We are very good friends, I'll give you price. And I was very lucky because I got like a couple hundred Posada pieces for my own collection. And for me, all that moment in 2005 when I went back to Mexico City, I was living in Los Angeles, but I went there for a few months. It was very important because for me it was to find or a reencounter with the Mexican tradition of printmaking and bookmaking. And I was invited to be part of this book of ex libris book plates, Mexican book plates, and they selected my image for the cover. So for me it was very important because it made me feel I was part of the tradition. In the US, I was, well, somebody, but I wasn't fitting in the Chicano art scene because I wasn't a Chicano, and there is not a Mexican art scene. And so I didn't have a place there. And going back to Mexico, I felt like I was part of a bigger, larger tradition. Because I knew this couple of designers, I thought, why don't I do my own book? And I had been working professionally for 10 years at that moment, but I felt I could do it. I could put together a book. My girlfriend back then, she's a graphic designer, so she said, yeah, I'll do it. And we did the book. And then by casualty, a governor from my state was coming to Los Angeles to the embassy. So I don't know how he knew about it. I went there with a maquette in my hand. He gave a speech. And then after that, he said, somebody wants to say something. I raised my hand and said, okay, I am an immigrant, I'm an artist, and we are trying to do this book. Do you want to publish it? And he said, yeah, talk to my secretary after the meeting is done. And I did that. And we agreed, and they bought 1,000 books. And with that compromise of money, I went to the publisher and told him, okay, I already have the start point. He did the other 1,000 books, and I did 1,000 books. So in the end, we did 3,000 books. This is the cover of the book, American Dream. And I titled like that because I felt it's an ironic title. It's not a literal title. It's not like I wanted to be the American Dream. It's, for me, the American Dream is this, no? Somebody counting dollars, like, oh my God, I have $5 in my hand. So it's more like criticism than my wish. So we printed the book, and it was very great because my work was seen in Mexico, in the US, and somehow it affected my generation and newer generations. And printmaking, which, as I said in the beginning, was more focused on etching and lithograph, suddenly it became a new wave of artists like Masatli, I don't remember her name, Luisa, and other people whom I met later, and told me that they had seen my book and really found it inspiring. So for me, it was great to see that, no, an effect of my work on other people, and they are doing it. They are doing it, and these are other samples of contemporary graphic done in Mexico. I'll talk a little bit about my beginnings, and here I am in the red arrow. Here I am 8, 12, and 15, and what I want to say about that period of time is that I was a boy that was, I always was outside. I'm from a big family. We are 9 brothers and sisters. My father was a bracero, a migrant worker. He would come to Florida to pick up oranges or to pick up tobacco and all that. So he was most of the time in the US, and my mother had to take care of us. So imagine having 9 little beasts running around. I was very free. I was free to do whatever. So I was always playing soccer or going around. But when I found out that there were books and that you can read them, I started reading when I was very young, like 8 years old. Yeah, 8. At that time, during those days, that's early. I know kids now read when they are 5 or 4. But when I started, I really love it. So I got really into it, and I was reading all the time. And that's how I grew up with this illusion of becoming a writer. I wanted to be a novelist, no? Because I loved the adventures of Tom Sawyer, Julio Verne, all that stuff. And then I went to the classics, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, Cervantes, of course, and then the Latino American boom, Vargas Llosa, Borges. I love reading. So when I was like 17, I became more into poetry. So I started, I became part of a class, and I was writing poetry and at 17. Huh? So I felt I was the next Rimbaud, and I was all into it. And in a magazine, I found out about this printer who was living not far from my town. So I like, oh, I'm gonna look for him, and maybe he will publish my first masterpiece of poetry. So I found a place which is not too far from the town. It's host on an old hacienda. It's like a 17th century hacienda called Santa Rosa. So I went, and there is Juan Pascoe. He's a Mexican-American in Mexico. His father is from Monterrey. His mother is from the U.S., but he grew up in Mexico and also in the U.S., where he learned letterpress printing. And luckily, he ended up in Tacámbaro, where I am from. He was very nice to me. He invited me to go as many times as I wanted. And then he hired me as a printer's apprentice. I learned to do the basics, and I really like to be there. As you can see, it's a beautiful place, an old adobe house in the middle of, my town is in the headlands, so it's tropical, you know, a lot of bananas and oranges and all that. It's next to a river. It's like paradise. And doing this, that is a very old trade, was phenomenal. But I wanted to be a poet, so I gave him a manuscript and told him, well, check it out, see what happens. And he said, yeah, we'll see. We never saw anything. He didn't like them, and so I kept going. And then he saw that I was good at drawing, and he said something about that. So he suggested me to try doing linocuts. He gave me some money to buy linoleum and knives, and I did that. And that's how I started doing printmaking. These are some of the workers there in the Taller Martin Pescador, and some of the presses that he has. He has like 4 old presses and then 1 big Vandercook, and a lot of equipment. One of the things that he gave me was this book called El Grabado en Madera, which is based in this one that was published in 1922, I think, by this guy, Paul Weinstein, who came to Mexico in 1942, running away from the Nazis. He was an art critic, an incredible art critic in Germany, and he had done this book about the woodcut. So he came to Mexico, and he came in the 40s when the Taller de la Gráfica Popular that I told you about before was in full swing. So he published the book that we saw before, and let's see, that one. And he added chapters talking about that. But what most interested me was the medieval woodcut, the old way of doing woodcuts. That really got into me. like the one we see here. No, it's so basic, so direct, so strong. I wasn't that attracted to Leopoldo Mendes, for example, because imagine you are 18 years old, you see that, and you're like, that's impossible to do. You can do that. You could so much texture and drawing. No. And when I saw this, I'm like, I can do that. I can do something simple, direct, and that gave me the confidence to get into it. So these are some of my first cuts that I did. This is the very first one, and it's an Aztec printer. Juan Pascoe suggested me to do it. So you can see all the mistakes that I'm doing all over, like cutting through the lines and everything is nowhere, but something happened, and you can see it, and it feels like German expressionism a little bit, but with bad drawing. But I really love it. I really like it. And then I did a second one, which is a view of my town in the early colonial times, and I was getting it a little bit more. They are very small. This one is a little bit larger, and is the same. My town when I was growing up. And the one over there is the invitation for my parents' 25th wedding anniversary. And it's based on the style of Franz Maserel, which is also spoken of in this book, The Woodcut. And I really love his work. I was very happy going to work with Juan Pascoe and being in my town and all that. I was working, my other job was as a mason helper. So I didn't see much future there or doing the printing. So my parents told me that, because I left the school early, and so I wasn't making it. So they told me if I go back to school or I go to the US. So I had two brothers in Los Angeles. So they offered to pay for the coyote, for the people who cross you across the border. And I said, yeah, let's do it. So I came to Tijuana and I crossed the border. It took us like 5 days to do the whole process. And then I arrived to Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, I was working painting houses and looking through newspapers to see if I could find something artistic. And I found a note about this place, Selfel Graphics. And it's in East Los Angeles. I was living in the north of Los Angeles, in Van Nuys. So in a weekend, we went to visit the place. I met Sister Karen Bocalero. She was an Italian nun, very artistic. She founded the place with other people in 1970. So it had a lot of history, and they were very open. They didn't charge to be part of a class. I took etching class, but I knew how to do linocuts, so I kept doing linocuts. Pretty soon, like a few months after I was taking classes and doing linocuts, they included me in this exhibit. You see me there very, very young. I was 22 or something like that. So for me, it was incredible not to be in this new place, this new country, and suddenly have an exhibit with this Chicano artist. And so I was able to sell some work, and then I left my job as a painter, as a house painter, and became full-time artist very early. When you are 22, it's easy, because you are inexpensive. You only eat burritos and tacos and water and keep going, and then sleep anywhere and work. So that's what I did. These are some of the images that I did back then, and they are basic and interesting, I think. So in my work, I deal a lot, not a lot, but I try to do it, to do criticism of things. No? So the one in the left is not that critical. It's more about my solitude and my ignorance for Mexico, and my friends. So there is a group of friends, and we are hanging out, having a beer or something, and I felt I needed that, and to portray that is the best way to live it, no? And the other one is called Somos Parte, we are part of it. So it's a guy sitting, having a nap, and then suddenly he starts having a nightmare, and from his nightmare, these characters come into the living room and invade wherever his space is. Here I am in the Self-Help Graphics studio. It was a very diverse group of people, a Mexican-Japanese girl, a guy from Mexico, a Korean lady, and other people. So it was great for me to have this friendship through arts. And I put this photo because this is one of the etching press that they have, and they had another one, a smaller one. And etching presses are kind of hard to use for printing linocut, but it was, of course, great to have them. My point is that when I was there, somebody told me of a German printer who was going out of business and was selling whatever he had. So I went to see him, and he sold me this book, proof press, they are called. And I didn't knew about them before. But when I went to see this guy, he was very nice. And he said, what do you want a press for? And I said, well, for printing linocuts. So he said, this is the one that you need. So I believed him. I paid $250 for it. And then some friends helped me to take it to the garage of a friend. And then I learned how to use it. And for me, it was very important because it was my return ticket to the letterpress world. No? Then I was able to get into do more carving and drawing, and I worry less about printing. This was in 1996, I think. I went to Mexico City, and Juan Pascoe invited me to illustrate my first book. I was 24, and it was the Aesop Fables, and it was very interesting because it was a manuscript done in the 16th century. We don't know if it was ever published as a book. It was translated to Nahuatl, to the Aztec language, and Juan Pascoe told me, we have to do it. Most of the countries in the advanced world of bookmaking had done their versions of the Aesop Fables, and here we see some samples of beautiful illustrations. So to do a book that was translated to Nahuatl in the 16th century with characters and everything of that period was an amazing opportunity for us to do the Mexican version of the Aesop Fables. So we did it. So I did ornaments and everything. There you can see me inking for printing the book. We had to ink by hand the little prints that I did, and then the type with a bigger roller. Here is the final book, which I think is beautiful. No? On top is the Nahuatl, in the bottom Spanish, and it has 47 Aesop Fables. Here's another image. And the linocuts are like very small. But I was very young. I had good eyes back then. So here's another one. You might recognize the fables. Okay, this is another project I did called La Loteria, and it's based on a Mexican game, this one, which is very popular. My son loves to play it when we have invite people for dinner. And it's like bingo. You have a set of cards, and then you yell the cards, and then you fill up your card. No? So I grew up playing it, and I think it's a very interesting set of images. So I decided to do my own version. I created 138 cards for it. So I did that, and then with a friend in Mexico City, we did actually get involved like 10 well-known poets to write text about my images. We had this wonderful book ready. We met with that editor, and we were about to publish it, and suddenly he disappeared. He went nowhere to be seen. And later we learned about that he was addicted to something, so he was put into some place to recover for that. So we lost the opportunity. But back then I was living in Berkeley, California, and somebody introduced me to Elaine Katzenberger. And she was, and I think she still is, the main editor in City Lights books. So I went to visit her. Her office was up there in the second floor of this place. And you might be familiar with this photo. It's a famous photo from the 60s. And City Lights was very important for the beatnik poets and all that. So I went to see her and show her the poems done by Mexicans. And she said that was not what they published it. They published it in English. So she suggested to invite a Chicano poet to do the poems. So she invited Juan Felipe Herrera, and he was a poet laureate of the U.S. from 2015 to 2017. Of course, this was before that, but back then he was well-known. Now he's even more well-known. And he accepted. He's a very nice, easygoing guy, and he did the writing, and then we published it, they published it, the book, Loteria Cards and Fortune Poems, A Book of Lives, by me and Juan Felipe Herrera. So I was 26 years old back then, so for me it was wonderful to be published by a legendary publishing house, City Lights. Then after Berkeley, I went back to Los Angeles. I had bought several letterpresses. I moved them into self-help graphics, and there I am, very proud with my letterpress. But soon after I moved there, I found this place next to the LA River and at the train tracks and very close to Chinatown. And it was an old mechanic shop, and it was like in ruins. But since I work as a house painter and also as a mason, I know how to build and do stuff with my hands. So we did cover all the inside, we covered the roof, we put insulation, and we made it very nice. So we were able to create a nice space in Los Angeles, and it was very interesting. All the way farther is my wife, Sylvia, and we were able to do a nice space because it was we two Mexicans, young, with this space where we did a lot of events and exhibits and everything. It was great. It had a lot of space, which in LA is a big plus to have. And yeah, we were there for like 7-8 years. Here's a view of the studio part. No, we had etching presses, and here we have a Vandercook and another proof press, and we had also silkscreen equipment, a lot of stuff. We published some books like this one, Puro Muerto, which includes artists from both sides of the border. We also did a big exhibit in Los Angeles Central Library. This is a beautiful place, and it was based on the book Puro Muerto. I don't remember the year, but I got this grant that Andy talked about it, Creative Capital, and as a part of the grant, I was invited to upstate New York to a retreat of artists. So a bunch of artists from all over the U.S. Were there. And I met this guy from San Francisco, John J. Leños. And a few months after we go back to San Francisco, to Berkeley, myself, he to San Francisco, he told me about this project that he was working on, and it had to do with lowriders. So he had bought an Impala 1968 and wanted me to do some art on it. So I study lowriders. This is a famous lowrider car. This one too. So I'm okay, I have to do something like this. Let's see what can I do. This is not the one that I did, this is something later, but I wanted you to see it because I can tell you a little bit about the process. So you have the old car, you sand the whole thing, and then paint it black, and then we applied adhesive paper, and then we cut it out, whatever design we wanted, and then we painted with white, took off the thing, and this is the result. So you take that and then a bunch of varnish so it looks like a car. So it's a spaceship, this Impala 68. It's only 2 doors, and every door opens and it's like 2 meters long. It's incredible to do cars, and they look beautiful, but after you have them, it's like having 5 kids, but big. And maybe 2 horses together, because you don't know where to put them. I mean, if you live in San Francisco, imagine where you put a car like this. And I was living in Berkeley, same problem. Then I moved to Los Angeles. So we were throwing the car, no? Like, okay, now it's your turn, now it's my turn. We were having exhibits, but most of the time it was a problem. Until the Petersen Automotive Museum in Los Angeles bought it. So now it's in their collection, people go, enjoy it, and I love it, it's beautiful. But I don't recommend to do cars. This is another view of the same car. Another view. So this is the other one I was showing you before. This is a 1948 delivery truck that I found there in Los Angeles. And it was just after we did the Muerto Rider, which is the Impala. And I found this truck and I fell in love with it. And I'm like, we have to do something. I put do a gallery, a print studio, everything. And I bought it for like $500. And then we work on it. We took it to some museums, and it was great, but the same problem. What do you do with it? Like, it's a car. I mean, yeah, you can drive it, but you can't have it all the time driving. No? Here's another view. There's my son. And we did this wheelbarrow for an exhibit I had in Oaxaca, and it was fun to do it. And then later, I don't learn. I found this, it's a Honda, no, a Toyota, I don't remember. But I found it, I love it. And I bought it for very cheap, and I did this. And we took off the seats, and we did, it's a library. So there are books inside, and kids get in, and blah, 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 blah. It's fun. This is a project that I did in Hawaii, in Maui, and I'm very proud of it because it happened like very spontaneously, and that piece is in several museums. Oh my God, the time is almost gone. So I'll show you very quick the images, and then, yeah, we're ready for the questions. So I'll show you the pieces. It's based on this piece by Bruegel. And then, yeah. And I took a little bit from there, the title, no? The Skeletons Riot. There's the whole thing. And then I went back to my hometown. We built a house. Kids from the neighborhood coming. They created prints. My young son, we were happy there, but we had to move because too much contamination in the farm fields. This is Pátzcuaro, is where we live now. A library we have there in Pátzcuaro. We have to. This is the same. We have a space for exhibits. This is the second library we have. It's called Library of Illustrated Books. This I bought, it's a commercial. I hope I get paid for that. It's a bookstore across the street, and I found this. And I have to go back to buy some of my process, a photograph, and then I print. More prints. They are very small. Seal screens. Another game. Oh, painting, print. Plate, print. Okay. I was supposed to talk also, it was same, a print and then my version of it. The largest print that I have done, the Garden of the Lights. There's my son. Book press. We have this project where we print old antique plates. Juan Pascoe, my son, Juan Pascoe. Projects we have done with Juan Pascoe. This one is the last one we have done. This I just finished it. Chicano portraits, 30 portraits. Sorry. Okay. And then this one, oh, how would you go back? Okay. This is being published right now. It's stories from my town. Illustrations of that book. This is my assistant, which now he's now a printmaker and he's illustrating books and all that. He has been working with me for 6 years. There he's Chalio and my son, and another work by Chalio. Chalio, and then postcards my son is making. Chalio and some friends, there's a lake in the background. We are part of this program called Vacations with an Artist, in case somebody wants to come and be there for 5 days. It's interesting. She's the first one who come and do it. We have a little gallery in town. That's the outside of the studio. That's the view from the studio. Well, from the roof, actually, of the studio. And we have donkeys. And my son with the youngest donkey. So, sorry, that light is red. I think that's it. If you have any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer. Oh, thank you. Oh, well, I have this one. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Hello, hello.
I know. I can do.
Hello. Okay. No one. Okay, somebody else.
I can do it.
Please.
Hi. I really love the talk. That was like my favorite one this semester. I was just curious if you've if you've considered like going into any other mediums like ceramics, painting, anything like that.
I have done almost everything, but I don't exhibit it much, no? But yeah, I have done painting, sculpture, ceramics. Good. Yeah, I love any kind of art. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you're at Stamps right now?
What?
You're at Stamps right now?
If I what?
Are you at Stamps right now? Or like I saw like the intro where you were like here or something, right?
Oh, well, I came here last Sunday.
Oh, okay.
We were able to get 2 extra days for this gig. And so I came Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I was working there at the studio with in the class. And then I'm leaving tomorrow early.
Nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, thank you for coming today. Your work is absolutely incredible. I was wondering, for your printmaking process, is there like a texture or a part of the process that brings you the most joy, or is like your favorite, or like the most satisfying part of like making?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the most satisfying parts is when you are printing. No? Some visitor said once when he saw us printing in the letterpress, because you have to, well, you don't have to, but we do. We wet the paper before it gets printed, no? So the way we do it, with a sponge, we put water on the paper, then we put it inside a plastic bag and let it rest for a few minutes. And then we set up the press, and then we put it on the letterpress, and then we run it. When it goes through and it comes out, you can even see a little vapor, a little like, it gets warm, like steam. Like you can see like, I mean, it's wet and it's supposed to be cold, but something happens chemically that it creates heat. So he said, wow, it's like making bread. And it smells like bread. Yeah. So it's a beautiful thing when you, the plate, you ink it, you run the thing, and then you pull it out in the other side, and it's magic, no? When you see what you did, and then you do it again, and then you do it again. So I think that's my favorite. And of course, when you are engraving, it's also some mental process happens that makes you, not forget about things, but to think about other things. So it's a whole trip to be cutting. Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Could you talk some about how some of your thinking when you're carving the block, where you're using, even though you're working in one color, how you're adding depth and texture and kind of the 3D-ness to some of your subjects?
Yes, I work the way all engravers did, which is very basic. It's very linear. I don't worry too much about textures. So it's a representation that you make in your mind, no? I believe, no? One of the things that I learned reading the book, The Woodcut by Paul Weinstein, is that when woodcuts became too complicated and they tried to imitate reality, they got poor. Because the way they were before, like the ones in the cover that I showed you, they are so basic, but they represent everything. I don't know if it makes sense. So I think that way too, that a simple line and a couple of lines can give you more to your imagination than somebody trying to portray the sky in all the details, or the sea, or all those, no? And linoleum is very basic. It's hard to do. I mean, if you are doing etching or lithograph, you can get fancy, and do a lot of stuff. But here it's black and white. But you can create shades, no? But for me, I prefer simplicity instead of getting complicated. I don't know if I answered it. Okay, thank you.
Hi. First of all, I would like to say that it was such an honor to watch you work over the past couple days in the print studio. And I was just wondering, what words of advice would you have for young printmakers today that are looking to get into the trade?
That's a very good question. I think it's the art world. It's a very hard thing, no? I mean, it's limited. There are only a few tickets to get into that bus. So if you are hoping to make it into that fancy bus, right? Better not. I think I believe the most important thing is in art is to It's going to sound kind of quirky, but I think it's true. To believe in yourself and to enjoy what you do. No, I mean, like really get into it and do whatever you have to do and enjoy it. And if you do that, you are going to be happy. Your work is going to grow. No, but if you are thinking about how can I make it, how can I go to how can I be in a gallery, and you get frustrated, or you become something else because you have to pretend you are something else so you can be in that. I don't know. It's not healthy, I would say. And one of the beautiful things about printmaking is that it's an inexpensive thing. Some people find it. I just was checking my Instagram, and somebody told me, "Oh, I went to an auction in Los Angeles, and they were selling some of your work, but I got there late." And they were sold, what word he used? Ridiculously cheap. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm sorry, no, that wasn't my intention. But it's, it can, I mean, if I had more ego, I would felt like, oh my God, my work. Poor my work, nobody wants it. But I know what actions are, and people are looking for things valuable, and in general, valuable is wherever the establishment established. No? So my work is not up there. I mean, I'm not a well-known printmaker or an artist. So I don't care. I prefer to think that my work will move anybody or somebody, and they will say, okay, you print this word 2 meals in Panda Express. Okay, I can not eat in Panda Express and buy you a print, and maybe 3 Panda Express meals or something. So it's accessible, and for me it's great because then I can go and buy something else than Panda Express. And the other thing that I said to some people, some students in your school, was that it's good to create community, no? To have friends, to support each other, and create as a community, because I think that's the beautiful part about printmaking. Painting, you can do that, I guess. I'm not a painter, but in printmaking, definitely. I mean, we have been doing this for 30 years now, and every time I have mounted a print studio, people come and they come back, and we work together, we enjoy being together, and then we try to go out and conquer, not the world, because you can do that, but at least a little part that can make you happy and give you money for buying beans and tortillas, no? Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Artemio. Just wanted to let you know that I've been enjoying one of your prints for about 27 years on my wall. I was living in New York City, a young artist and a young art teacher, and a woman that I had worked with, Jane Dixon. Okay. She and her friends had put on a show of yours. I think it was at the 92nd Street Y. Okay. And I went, and it was just amazing. I wanted every one of the prints on the walls, and I was a young, struggling artist, and you know, as a teacher, not making much money, but amazingly, my first series that I did, I got a cold call, and a young woman, asked me to meet her at Barnes and Noble. She wanted to buy 2 of the works, not 1, but 2. So I was tickled and over the moon, but. A day later, I went up to the Y and bought one of your prints, and I thought that was just a good closure of the circle. And subsequently, as a teacher, I did a lot of linocuts thereafter with my students, and we did a lot of kind of social issues around the city that were happening. So I just wanted to say that it was inspiring, just your work without seeing you or meeting you, but it's nice to, after all these years, see you in person.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. An honor. Oh, nobody here? Oh.
Hi. I just wanted to say that I love the use of skeletons in your work, and I was just curious why.
Okay, that's a very good question, and it is because we have in our tradition in Mexico, as you all know, watching Coco movie, we have that very present every year, no? And that's one side. But the other side is me knowing the work of José Guadalupe Posada and Manilla and the way they use or they play with the skeleton figure is amazing. So it's like one of the things that I was supposed to say in my presentation is that I use a lot of religious images, and it happens the same. That doesn't mean that I am a very religious person or I want you to become Catholic like I was when I was growing up. But growing up in an environment where you have all this information, visual and all that information, it becomes part of you and your human way of expressing reality. So they are tools that you use to say things, no? To say things about life. So I think they are that, no? They are a way of criticism or say, I love you, or I don't like this, or I don't like that. So that's why they are metaphors, no, for life. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for this awesome talk. I started my first linocut 2 weeks ago.
Ooh.
Have not printed it yet, so complete novice here. I had never considered before your talk the power of printmaking to really transcend generations of artists, like the images where you were taking blocks that were created by your predecessors, artists you admired and were looking up to and emulating and drawing inspiration from. You have a unique opportunity to almost kind of even collaborate with artists that are, deceased in a way that like painting and drawing and even ceramics doesn't allow you to. Like you get to work with their physical materials. So when generations of artists and printmakers get their hands on your blocks 100 years from now, what do you want them to do with it?
I don't know. I want them to be happy and enjoy it. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I feel the same, no? When I get a plate done in the 19th century or in the 18th century, and then you put ink and then you print it, it's like, oh, back then he did it or she did it and had the same feeling of, oh, nice. Mm-hmm. So I hope, there are some people who said that you have to burn or destroy your plates after the edition is done, like Puritans, no? Like they want to be like, oh, there is an edition and that's it. But I don't believe that. No, I think it's better. I mean, I have a son and I want him to have them and have them as a token of my love. And in future generations, if that happens, hopefully they can get used of them. Mm-hmm.
Hi, I was mainly just in love with all the history you brought up today because our history class doesn't really talk about the printmaking of Mexico. And you moved to like near Los Angeles, right, you said, and you were doing art there, but now you're back in like Mexico doing your own libraries. And I was wondering if you could like compare your arts experience in like the art scenes between Mexico and America.
Yeah, they are very different in many ways, no? In the US, you are lucky because here you have many possible clients. I mean, in the US, you have a lot of educated people, people who read, who love books, and you also have, in the other end, people who love guns and all that. But you have that, no? In Mexico, unfortunately, the rate of people reading books, and it's very low. So, and economy, it's also poor. So it is more difficult to make a living and have a market. But it has its positive things, no, over there, no? For me as an artist, I'm happier there than here, no? Because here, that's why we left, no? Because we had to pay rent and the bills and then tickets, and it was too much worrying about those things. And there, we will take it more easy, no? And I was able to build a house. Here, I couldn't. So that's why I love to be there. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay, how are we doing? Okay. Yeah, because I see that light. See? Yep.
You gave the advice of find something to do that makes you happy and joyous that you can pursue. Lots of things in the world make me sad, make me angry, sometimes rage. Do you ever find yourself wanting to express those emotions, which it seems to me are somewhat different motivations than happiness, and that art can help us work through or express our anger, our rage, our sadness?
Yeah. I think most of my work is about that, actually. I mean, I'm very happy with what I do, and I enjoy it, and it has this pleasure side. But the subject matter and the feelings that I portrayed in my art have to deal with that, with the frustration, with, as I said, I have a 12-year-old son, and those 12 years of him being in my life, every day it makes me wonder what future we are. Everyone is living for him and all the other kids like him. And it makes me mad that we are doing it bad, that we are terrible. I mean, everybody says, oh, it's the global warming. Oh, it's the global warming. But what are you doing about it? No, I mean, you go to the stores and packages for everything. And we are creating so much trash, so much pollution by buying wherever, and it's in a package. And then, as I said, taking a plane, it's contamination. You are destroying the planet. Well, don't take the plane. And driving here and there, you are destroying the planet. I very frustrated by all that, and I try to portray it, but in ways, it's because if you say it like that, who cares? No, or here it comes this, how you say, lefties or something, no? But yeah, we have to learn to do that. So I try to do that in the libraries that we have. When I speak to students, try to make them think about that. But of course, what can we do? No, I mean, I bet all of us here are people who have a conscience and have good intentions, and we are good people. But the guys and the girls too, the ladies who are making it big and they are not here. No? So it's hard to make them listen. But if we can do something in our own capacity, then it's great. No? Where we live, we save water. I mean, for washing dishes, I use like no water almost, and water plants with reused water, all that. Because I was talking to somebody here, and she says, well, we have here a lot of water. We don't have a problem with that. And it's like, great. But in Mexico and many places, there we just started a draw that is possibly last 10 to 20 years. So we're just starting. So if now we have problems with water in the next year, the next 2 years, it can become a real problem, like real. So how can you do something about it? No? So it's something to think about it. And yeah, of course, I get frustrated. No?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Artemio, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
And all of you, thank you. Thank you. We'll see you next week. Christina will be back.